Welcome to the Freaky Film Club. I'm your spooky host, Jeremy Jordan, and I'm joined with first-time guest on the Freaky Film Club.
Yeah, first time, for sure.
Mitch Grande.
Mitch Grande, that's me, yep.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
Oh, it's just so great. I'm glad to have you here at our Freaky Film Club dungeon for the first time.
Happy to be here. Got to relive a fantastic movie from our past, too. So
Yes.
That's a good time.
Yeah, if people are wondering why we're doing the second one right away as opposed to the first, that is why. We share that memory of watching it together.
Yeah, exactly. Not just us, too. It was our whole friend group. Do you remember?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it became kind of like a long-running gag, too, for a while. It was like, well, before I look for a good title splicing place, and it's going to be right here. We're talking, of course, about Cube 2 Hypercube. Okay. Yes, I do remember that actually. It was kind of a long running gag because our friends got to the point where at some points they would actually be annoyed. You'd bring it up as a joke, how about we watch Hypercube tonight? They'd be like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, reached meme status within the group pretty quick. But remember, because it happened where I saw it on my own, and then we were all having a sleepover or whatever. And I was telling you about it, and it was on that night, and so we watched it, and everyone hated it except me, and maybe you. I don't know how you felt about it, but it's not a high grade movie, right?
I remember it's not exactly a high grade movie. I mean, there's some. Well, we'll get into it soon, but yeah, I just remember being a little confused, and I remember being very struck by the zero-G sex scene.
Yes.
That was the one that really tickled me.
Interesting choice of words, but
yes. I mean, it was I wouldn't let it go. I mean, I brought it up later. I actually have video recording of us hanging out in the basement when we were I don't know, when would this have been? Middle school?
I don't know, older than that, I think.
Okay. But yeah, we're hanging out in the basement, and we're trying to describe to one of our friends, I think it was Grace, we're trying to describe that scene, and she's like, what do you mean they're having anti-gravity sex? I'm like, well, I took two Beanie Babies and just made them start spinning, and I'm like, it was like this, but then they got aged up. And then we got into a bunch of other inappropriate stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's actually an accurate description. I mean, I'm sure that was a pretty good representation of it. So.
Yeah. So I'm sure she was very enlightened by that discussion.
Right, obviously.
And I'm sure she went off to go see the film right afterwards, too.
Right.
But yeah, so that was my big takeaway, I remember. And yeah, I do remember watching it in the basement on Sci-Fi.
Probably.
Or something, yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, little flashes. Really, when it came back to me that I had the scene that really brought me back to the basement. Well, of course, the sex, but besides that was when she first meets Sasha, and I'm like, okay, I remember that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
The ending to me was the thing that really stuck with me because I remember I don't know, talk about it yet, but the whole ending part. I remember everything that happened, and it that's the part that I really remember and really stuck with me.
Sure. And when we watched it together, we did watch it all the way through, right? On cable?
I think so.
We tried. Yeah. We journeyed or rallied.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah. Did you ever see the first one?
No.
Okay.
No.
And you don't really have to, right?
I don't think so. I mean, I understood what happened.
Right. Yeah. And it's.
I read about the first one a little bit, and from what I can tell, the only similarity is that there's people stuck in a cube of some kind. There doesn't seem the first one doesn't sound sci-fi even. It's just kind of like a horror thriller type of thing.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was reading as well. It was more just torture rooms that are just low tech.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, there's really no connection. In fact, we find out really, I think, more about the cube's creation in this second one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
and they kind of go the route of to me, it reminded me of Jason X, where it's we got a concept here. Let's just put like shiny stuff over it to make it high tech. So yeah, Cube 2 came out in 2002. It was a Canadian film, and it was it was basically a direct sequel, but also so you could view it as sort of like a remake of sorts. I mean, it's almost like
like a sci-fi take, on the original, something like that, yeah.
And basically, this film starts out with a girl, Becky. We don't really know I don't think we know it's Becky. I think we see her tag, but I don't know if we can read it or not.
Even if there's no context yet, so it doesn't. Yeah.
And she's just having like visions, like flashbacks, and she goes into like a 0G area and gets pulled up, and we're just to assume that she dies.
Right.
And I should mention, this film is directed by a guy. I'm gonna butcher his name probably.
It's okay.
Andrzej Sekuła. I don't know, but he is a Polish cinematographer who actually worked on a lot of like big films. He worked with Quentin Tarantino on a lot of his early films, and he directed a bunch of films himself as well as this film. And I think he must have done the cinematography for it as well. There are some cool shots in this film. Like there's a lot of cool movement. We'll talk about that as it gets on. But I guess important name to bring up. The actors, not so much.
So no.
A lot of them are still working, but they don't get a lot of work.
Right.
So
yeah.
So after that person gets pulled up, we get the opening credits and some neat effects, I guess.
The nice thing though now is I fast forwarded through the opening credits. I don't have to watch them because it's not on cable.
That's true. Yeah. And so then after the opening credits, we get a quick shot of another dude, I think, who's kind of being tormented, it seems. Or, like, I don't even
remember.
Really know. I think he's just in agony. It's kind of quick. It's right before we see that other girl.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, we now meet one of our main characters, Kate.
Yep.
Who kind of runs into another character here, right? And let's see. This is I think one of the areas like right off the bat where you kind of see like some cool movements, because like it kind of like, I don't exactly remember what's happening, but like it like moves over his face, which is funny because I just watched this morning. But like I did start watching it last night. I should admit I fell asleep kind of like at the 45-minute mark, which I don't know if it's saying something about me just getting older or if it says something about this film, but
a little bit of both. I fell asleep at one point during it too. So,
okay.
I mean, it's admittedly slow moving, right? Like
yeah,
it is.
Yeah. But yeah, so at this point there's like some cool movement, and we're introduced to, well, I'll just name all the characters right off the bat here. You've got Kate, you've got Simon, who ends up being kind of like the unhinged lunatic of the group.
Yep.
Jerry, who's sort of like this dork.
Yep.
Max, who's I kind of wrote that he was like the Kmart version of like Topher Grace.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
He kind of is like the slacker, like stonery kind of guy who's like a programmer.
Yep, young nerdy look. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you've got Julia, who they don't find till like a little bit later.
Yep.
And then you've got Sasha, who kind of is found right away, who is blind.
Yep.
And you've got Mrs.
Paley.
Yep. Who is an older lady who seems to be kind of out of her mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not kind of. I mean, she's like pure dementia. Yeah. Like,
she's
how did I get here? She thinks she's on her way to the grocery store type of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think we found that to be quite humorous when we were watching it as kids.
Even today, still.
Even today,
yeah. I mean, it's a good, classic thing.
Right. Yeah. Especially when she's getting lifted up. Like she's like, wee.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's all your characters. I'll just probably refer to them as their character name and never their actor names. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you your due credit. But what can I tell you?
Maybe you can slice in their actor names at the end here.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
I do that sometimes for these. I did this for the sleepaway camp. I'll give a little behind the scenes. I kept referring to one of the character names incorrectly, so I just recorded myself saying it the right way or the right name, and I just like spliced it in later.
Nice.
You never know. Anyways, so I think the order is Kate runs into Simon first, or maybe
I think it's Jerry first.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And then they get separated somehow, and she runs into Sasha.
Yep.
And then it's revealed. This is where I remember watching it. And Sasha drops a line that would not fly in today's modern media.
Okay.
Because she's like, "I'm just blind. I'm not the R word."
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I got a good kick out of that.
Yep. Yeah, because one of them was talking to her like she was, right?
Yeah. Kate's like, "It's gonna be okay."
Yeah.
Yeah. And its movie is really not that old. It's like 2002. They're still dropping that, I guess.
I mean, I think we're still, like, as a society, like, that wasn't taboo yet.
Sure.
At that time.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd still love to drop it right here, right now. But I just know the ramifications. Just kidding. Anyways, so they have the little back and forth. And now... Jeez, I write horrible.
That's okay.
I've got horrible handwriting. I wrote Jerry comes up. Does he pop up out of a hole?
Oh, yeah. So she did meet Simon first. You were right. Kate met Simon first. And the Jerry came in from, like, one of the holes in the bottom. Should we set the scene a little bit?
Yeah, why don't we?
Yeah. So all of this takes place in these rooms that are maybe, like, 10-foot, 12-foot cubes. And there's a door, a little, like, panel that's maybe 2 foot across on each wall, and then you can press them, and they shoot open, and then you can climb through. But then what you find out pretty quickly is that the orientations are different. So like you might climb through one and then like fall out. Like the gravity is different in the different sections.
Sure. Yeah. Right. And all the interiors look
identical.
Yeah. And so...
Great for production costs.
Yeah, I must have loved that. So Jerry pops up, and they eventually all kind of join up.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, they all get into the same one. And so we named all the characters, and they come across the Colonel now, who they're trying to save. Oh, that's how they meet up, actually. Because, like... They're like, help! Like, this guy's hanging!
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so Jerry's holding him, and they all kind of rush to help him, and they do get him down, but it's a little too late. But he's able to muster, like, they need to, like, solve the code to get out. And just as, like, they get that information, like, with some really awesome effects, the room starts to like close in, like it's just like a line or something.
Yeah, like an interdimensional line is like crossing the room, which is kind of like wavy looking and weird. Yeah,
and the Colonel basically stays to die.
Yep.
And they escape up out of one of the panels into the next area.
So one of the things that hit me is when the Colonel, before he dies in that scene, he says a few times, "It can't happen again," or "not this again," or something like that. And I wonder if that's a reference to the first one, but since we've never seen it, like maybe he's from the first one, or like is cognizant of something, like if they're in the same universe.
Right? Yeah. That's a good question.
Yeah.
He probably does have some connection.
Yeah.
And then they get into the next area, and they start to try to figure out that they're in a Tesseract.
Yep.
Because the old lady mentions it, and Jerry starts to kind of talk about like interdimensional, fourth dimensional stuff. And it's kind of funny because it does like that. some of the dialogue sucks in this.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Like, we'll just be, like, sorry. It sucks. The acting isn't the greatest either. So, like, in some instances, bad dialogue can be saved by good acting, but it does, on top of the bad dialogue, there's also some pretty bad acting.
Yeah.
And so, like, they're doing the lesson part. I thought there was some pretty cringy lines. Like, Max is like, oh, we're not in school, man. Just, like, get on with it. And, one of the problems, I think, with this movie is, besides the other stuff I just named, is, like, the characters, like, they're not, like, you don't really connect with a lot of them.
Right.
It's not, like Kate's pretty cool, and you feel her empathy. You feel like she doesn't want to give up, but, like, the rest of them, I don't know, they're just all, like, just there.
Yeah, there's no depth to any of them. Even Kate, she's the protagonist, but you're really not given a reason to, like, care about if she survives or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no backstory. There's no, like, oh, I have a husband and kids or something. It's just, like, all you know is what happens in the cubes,
right?
Much. So
yeah, they're having a little bit of a kind of just discussion about what could be what situation they're in, and you also find out that the old woman works for the weapons manufacturer Izon. Thank you. And it's we kind of slowly throughout the movie realize there's an Izon connection with a lot of people in this, and they find the body in another. They go into another room and they find the body of, like, a mathematician or something, or like a quantum engineer or something. Yeah,
like a Nobel Prize winning mathematician or something. Yeah,
and that actually looked good, I thought. Like, there's some decent stuff. Like, when they do practical things, like the makeup on that guy with all the numbers, that looked cool. But, like, when they do CGI,
CGI was rough. Yeah.
So that's a good jump scare. There's another connection to, like, some people know him, and I think this is where it's revealed that the other dude, Max, is a programmer.
Yep.
And so kind of learn more about that. And they have I found this to be kind of odd because this is cool actually. Before the odd part, I'm going to mention they also see that little parallel universe area where the dude gets his head, like, taken off.
Oh yeah. Yep, he sees himself die in another, like, alternate reality type of thing.
Yeah. And that's an explanation as to why they saw, like, multiple watches, because Jerry, in another universe, would have left it behind.
Right.
Because in this one, he's like, I'll only do it if I have to, I think.
Right. Yep.
And they got so desperate in that one that he did. So there's some cool ideas going on here. There's just, like, it's like it's not quite together.
Yeah. Yeah, because they did, it is, like, a cool play because it's both alternate realities. It's almost like time travel in a way because of that. But, yeah, it's falls apart a little bit.
Yeah.
Or falls short, rather. It doesn't really fall apart. It's just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
They almost could have used, like, another, like, 30 minutes. 30 minutes.
Maybe to do, like, build, like, a sub-story of some kind where, like, the time travel, alternate reality has more of an impact than just, like, oh my god, I died, right? Something like that.
Yeah, like a cartoon cube got me.
Right.
So they then have a montage. Oh well, Max also is like, oh, I'll open that. I don't believe you. I think this is all a hoax. And the other dude convinces him not to, and then they move on to another area, and now we get into a montage, which I thought was kind of weird. I mean, it moves things along, but it was like, what? We're just, like, gonna be in a random montage now.
Again, not the highest quality movie, right? But
yeah. But it does explain some more things because there's some dialogue over the top of this montage where they talk more about, I think, Izon. I think they talk just about this.
I think so. Yeah.
And then let's see. Oh, and they talk about Alex Trask, a superhuman and a super hacker. That's also talked about during this montage. And then after that, they're in another room, kind of exhausted, just laying down. Like some people, I think, are actually sleeping. And Simon reveals to Jerry that he's a private investigator and he's looking for Becky, who is an eyes-on worker,
right?
Who was that woman from the beginning.
Yep.
And they're interrupted by a floating square. So everyone wakes up, and I mean, what do you think about this scene here?
I mean, they needed something that really brought in, like, I think, action, right? Because it was a, pretty action-oriented scene, but it was just so stupid at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. Like a square that turns into like a, bunch of squares that's spinning around like a open lawnmower, right? And they're trying to get away, and they, whatever. It worked for what it is, but it definitely was pretty cheesy.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I did like how it ended, where they discovered that their movement is what like agitated it and caused it to, like, get bad and hurt them. So it was like kind of a, I guess, neat way to end it at least. But the whole thing could have just not happened.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, there's no, like, there's no indication that's gonna happen. Right. And it's never referenced again either. It's just like a standalone thing, like, for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And my really only problem with, like, the non-movement thing was, like, when they were up against the corner not moving the first time, was there any indication that it was, like, going to shrink or stop?
Oh, good call. I don't know.
It's like they already stopped moving once before.
Yeah, but at that point in the plot.
Yeah, it wasn't important enough.
Exactly.
But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I do think that was a clever way to, like, okay, that's our way out of here.
Yeah.
So then, they move on, and and at this, we should mention, like, it was just, did we mention they got separated? It was just the two of them in that room with the cube.
Kate
Jerry,
and Sasha.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jerry got, like, mutilated by it.
Yep.
And so Simon, and they had already found the girl at this point. We kind of we mentioned it, but we skipped over it in our main discussion of the plot. But they found Julia
yep.
in a random cube. So Max, Julia, and Simon are on the other side somewhere,
yep.
And all this chaos is going on with Kate.
Oh, no, because they were all in the same room, and then most of them escaped. But Sasha was stuck on the other side because they forgot about her.
Yeah.
And then Jerry was just too slow or something. And then Kate went back to get Sasha.
Yeah.
That's how they,
And there's a lot of Kate having, like, a back and forth with Simon. Like, they beat the shit out of each other a lot in this movie.
Yeah, because she's trying to do the right thing. He's, like, just trying to survive basically at all costs. And they're at odds. He's kind of an antagonist.
Yeah. And so they do escape from the that cube, and in the next room, and also Mrs. Paley's in there with them in that other room, and Simon has Mrs. Paley tied up, and he's trying to get answers from her, and obviously she doesn't know.
No, she's totally, like, off her rocker, like, no idea what's going on.
Yeah. So of course this just sets up this dude to even be more of an asshole. Like, he's willing to do this to an old lady, and he just doesn't care.
Right.
Max and Julia watch on in horror, and soon, like, these, like, weird quartz things start coming towards them, like really cool.
More great effects. Yeah.
And so they're running out of time because obviously it's gonna close in, and Simon does try. I mean, at first, to his credit, he does try to get her free.
Yep.
But she's, like, kind of holding on to him, and so eventually he just stabs her.
Right.
It's worth mentioning he brought his own knife to this, so he's got a knife the whole time, and so he stabs her. Julia and Max are, like, horrified. They try to get away from him. And Simon goes after them out the same hole, the same, like, route. But somehow, I didn't really get this too much because like they're going the same route, but I guess because it's like, is it a time thing? They get away from him, and he just sees like their.
Oh yeah, that weird where they're like the shadows of themselves type of thing. Yeah, I don't know what that was for.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So like that's somehow so they got away basically. He got like separated into another area.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Kate and Sasha now are on their own journey, right? They're just trying to figure things out.
Yep.
And Max. So Max and Julia, now that they're separated, they see a variable time room.
Yep.
So like Max sees Julia speaking really quickly, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, and he knows. Well, of course, I was questioning like, why would he know right away? But then he talks about it that he designed the cube thing, 'cause
right?
He programmed it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So he's like, yeah, variable time room. Like as if it was like supposed to be a funny one-liner. Like, oh, you card. But so, yeah, so he's revealed to have designed it. And prior to that, Simon sees another Jerry.
Yep.
And it's kind of like implied that he's going to kill him because he's like, I'm really hungry.
Yeah, like it looks like he was gonna kill and eat him. Here's what it looks like, right? Which they don't ever actually like show or like imply it specifically happens. But yeah, it was kind of an awkward scene.
Yeah,
it felt like it was kind of out of place.
It was a really quick turnaround. Like I know he just stabbed that old woman, but now he's like gonna cannibalize another Jerry.
Yeah, like that's a big jump.
Yeah,
because he stabbed her to save himself.
Yeah,
which is at least like that's and then to go from that to I'm going to kill you and eat you, the implication is a pretty big jump.
Yeah. So now Kate and Sasha see dead versions of themselves from just earlier where they're like all up against the wall. So like, wow, that's a version that did definitely not make it.
Right.
And another cool thing that they did, it's like, wow, like, yeah, there's alternate things going on here, and like they get to like run into that. Like I like that.
Yeah, like diverging realities, kind of. Yeah, I think it's cool.
And so now I talked about this. Max revealed that he kind of worked on the concept. And Julia has a horrible acting moment here. I don't remember exactly what she says, but she's like, Max, this isn't a game or something.
Yeah.
And then Julia talks about how she like represented this company.
Yep, she was a lawyer. Yep.
And then Simon has gone crazy, kills another Jerry.
Yep. He's collecting his watches as he goes, like trophies.
Yeah. Sasha then reveals that she is Alex Trusk.
Yep.
And tried to stop the operation, but failed to do so. And I think this was like the only logical place that she could hide. And then Julia and Max, this is where they have just random sex. Like, this really makes no sense because I'm glad. I mean, I loved it as a kid, but like, why?
Right.
Just there's no reason.
Yeah, life or death situation. They're in like some unknown space-time thing, and they decide to have sex for some reason. I wouldn't do it. Right.
Right.
Like more important things to take care of.
Yeah. But hey, whatever. Some people, yeah, you gotta have it, I guess. So now Simon finds another Becky and kills her too. And like you said, how he's collecting the watches, he also collects the ID badges.
Yep.
I thought that was cool too. And Kate is just refusing to give up. She sees the corpses of Alex and Julia in one of the things.
Yep.
And then again, she sees that thing that Simon saw earlier where, like, she sees an alternate version of herself get her head taken off.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then eventually she runs into Simon. And this is cool. So she first the hatch opens. She stabs Simon in the eye.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And
because they're like face to face right on this hatch, and he tries to attack her, and she kind of overpowers him and stabs him in the eye with his own knife.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And so then he falls back into the thing, and then he pops out of another one. And he is now there's an older version of himself with like a missing eye.
Yep.
He's like, I've been waiting so long to get revenge for this.
Yeah.
So again, like another cool concept.
Yeah. Great idea.
Yeah.
Like a play on time and the whole thing. Yeah.
And that actually looked good too. Like they aged him up and gave him like gray hair and
and the wound for his eye was like good and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he gets behind Sasha, holds her hostage. And Kate's like, just like take me instead. And then somehow Sasha's like, doesn't even matter anyways. And then he just kills her then.
Yep.
Then Kate, the way that I think she's able to take him out is by going through another one and coming out the other side.
Right. She like falls on him like by going around. Yeah. Like jumps on him. Yeah.
So kind of like a little precursor to Portal.
Something like that.
So she gets on top and then basically just stabs him again, right? With his own knife.
I don't remember exactly, honestly.
I think that's what happens. Because it kind of happens like off screen. You don't really exactly see it, I don't think. But like I think she manages like twist his arm over or something and like stab himself with his own thing. So yeah, he dies. She figures out the code by looking at the watches and figuring out that's the time that the whole thing is gonna implode.
Yep.
But like weird how she put together like, okay, I just have to jump out of this specific hatch just before it implodes. I don't know how you put that together after you figure out the code.
It's a pretty big leap.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it worked. So, and more great effects as the cube implodes. Yep. I mean, I guess it wasn't. If I was watching this in 2002.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah. Not laughably bad for back then, but it didn't age well.
No.
That's for sure.
But yeah, so she jumps out and then she just wakes up in this water inside of like a weird factory looking place.
Yep.
And there's a line of people in front of her and two armed guards come and pick her up, bring her over to like this scientist. And and before she jumps out, she grabs a necklace off of Alex.
Yep.
And
Sasha still.
Sasha.
Right. But Alex, yeah.
And the necklace has like data on it. And so she hands that over to this scientist. And she's like, thank you or whatever. I don't even know. They exchange a few words.
Yep.
And then he takes a gun out and shoots her.
Yep.
And then he says phase 2 terminated and credits. So what do you think about that?
The ending or the whole thing?
Well, let's go with the ending first.
Okay. So it was tough, like, so there wasn't really a serious twist, it felt like, because you kind of knew through the whole movie that it was, 4-dimensional cube. And you kind of assume it's eyes on, some sort of like research type of thing. And I guess the only real shocker is that they kill her at the end. Like, it was just a bit of a surprise, but also not surprise. Everyone else died by this point. So I don't know. I mean, not awful, but not really great either, right? Like a little bit of a letdown, I'd say, overall.
Sure, yeah. I think it goes back to like the whole like just like fleshing things out a little more. Could have gone a little further with it, and like they wanted us to have like when really, like you said, it was more of like, well, we weren't really that shocked. We knew already about Izon. Is that right? Izon?
I think so, yeah.
And we knew, like, they revealed quite a bit through all the character stuff, and the Kate thing, yeah, okay, but like we don't care enough about her,
right?
To be like, oh no,
not Kate.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just left a lot, and like Izon, they should have made them make them even like scarier, like
right.
like I don't know exactly how. I can't pitch you everything.
I mean, they already made him shadowy. What else could you expect?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. What can you do? But I did read that it was an alternate ending where Kate still dies, but they now instead they say like they linked the government in somehow, and then there was like one other thing that they show, but that still probably wouldn't have been enough. I think that they just needed to like just tell more. But yeah, so yeah, that's the film. That's Cube 2. What do you have a hell yeah moment?
Ooh. I think when Simon starts going crazy and just killing people, it's kind of like a psychological moment where it's like, I think he realizes that because there's alternate realities, there's like no harm even in killing people because there's just one version of them out of some infinite number. And so he's just kind of like, I mean, he's like, a lunatic by this point in the movie, but it's like there's also this moment where it's like there's more Jerrys, as many, no matter how many he kills, there's gonna be more, so it doesn't really matter either.
Yeah. That's okay, cool. Right on. Yeah. I actually had a very similar hell yeah moment because I wrote I liked aged Simon. So like just seeing Simon like his descent and how he had like the trophies and just his, I mean, yeah, like a lot of the stuff you mentioned, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, and that's the thing about the movie is like it had a lot of good plays and like cool concepts. Like Simon, there's this implication that he's been in there for 20 years, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Like, we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. But then the whole thing, like, it's just such a, obviously it has other problems, but like there are some really cool things like that throughout.
Yeah. So what about a final rating?
Nostalgia factor, 8 out of 10. Right?
Okay.
Including nostalgia, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 total. Realistically, like if I just watched it today, I'd give it maybe a 5 out of 10,
Sure.
Like it's really, again, it's got some cool concepts. It's kind of a bad movie. But like, it's got enough cool concepts, I think, that makes it interesting enough to kind of see and like, you want to see how it ends and like kind of see how it all comes together. But at the same time, it's got problems.
Yeah. I gave it a 2.5 Tesseracts out of 5. Okay. Because I just think, like it's like cool stuff going on. Like, I love that I can always think about this movie in terms of our childhood, and then like some stuff will always make me laugh.
Yeah.
And there's really cool moments. I like some of the shots. There's like cool angles. There's like cool movements going on. But yeah, the acting leaves a lot to be desired, and there just needs to be more. Yeah. So, but I do look forward to watching the first one at some point in life. Maybe we could do another Freaky Film Club on it.
Yeah.
That's kind of a reoccurring thing here. We like Colin and I, we did My Bloody Valentine 3D first, and then we went back and did the original.
All right. Yeah.
Because it was another our kind of childhood thing. So we were like, just do this one first.
Right.
But
there's a Cube Zero too, which is a prequel. Right? It's a trilogy, and there's a prequel. Which, cool. No idea if it's related story wise, but.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got our work cut out for us.
Yeah, 2 more. We can do it.
All right, man. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Of course.
And, stay scary.
Yeah, you got it.